Alright, YouTube, I thought it was time to clue
Hannah
people.
will probably be streaming on my birthday, and I'll be here, so you guys can all wish me a happy birthday then. I appreciate them now, though.
Into a few things about me because I haven't really talked about them before. I don't know exactly why, but they are things that people should probably know. I alluded partially to this when I did my
Oh
when
God,
I
why does he
basically
look
talked with the
so
people on Night
different
Watch
than
Radio.
normal?
He's not wearing glasses.
Oh.
I don't know if many of my subscribers actually watched that though, so I should probably talk about it here. I think I did make one video before where I talked partially about this.
Did we get a hype train while I fell
The
asleep?
events when I was a
There's
kid.
nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Logarth with 50 bits. This is my last day at as a 39-year-old. Haha. Oh God, you're gonna be 40. That's so old. Good luck.
I saw the demon Stolas perched on the
Happy
basically side
birthday,
of my
Logarth.
wall, above or near the window, spewing smoke and making weird noises, which I partially replicated on the channel advertisement.
I wasn't listening. What did he say?
Perched on the. I don't know if many of my subscribers actually watched that though, so I should probably talk about it here. I think I did make one video before where I talked partially about this. The events when I was a kid, when I saw the demon Stolas perched on the basically side of my wall, above or near the window.
Oh no, Styx! Styx, you didn't see a demon. Demons aren't real. Demons aren't real. You didn't see a demon. You probably had a sleep paralysis nightmare.
Sleep
spewing
paralysis
smoke.
demons are real.
And making weird noises, which I partially replicated on the channel advertisement that I've got by whistling and then really heavily editing my whistle. I was able to make a sound that actually approached that sound. I'll fiddle around with the audio and try to see if I can perfect it, and then I'll like call it Stolas.
There's nothing funny about the
like
tools of capitalism.
Logarth with 20 bits. Styx looks like he's short a few blood points. I guess he got a few thralls or at least been feeding well during the pandemic. I don't get the reference.
But anyway, I was never exposed to the occult when I was a child. I was never exposed to the idea of Satanism. There were no cults. There was nothing around. I didn't even know what the occult or even magic meant. To me, magic when I was a kid meant some dude pulled a rabbit out of its hat. Or
Styx, you and I both grew up, as far as I know, in the United States. You're a little older than me, but I can't imagine by much. Both of us were at least tangentially aware of the occult or the idea of Satanism through cultural osmosis, if nothing else. The Satanic Panic was a thing in the 80s. We would have known about that stuff from media talking about it. Acting like you never had any contact with the concept of the occult that could have influenced you to see certain things if you were having a sleep paralysis nightmare is just inaccurate. That's completely inaccurate.
something like that. That's what magic meant to me. And yet, shortly after I saw this demon, shortly after, within months, I would say, I can't exactly, I mean, it was when I was a little kid, so I can't remember the exact timeline. Shortly thereafter, I actually got in trouble because I was drawing pentagrams everywhere, and I remember my mother told me not to do that.
And where would a kid ever get the idea to draw a star with a circle around it? That's such an original idea that no one has ever thought of before on their own.
I asked why, because
Styx, I would imagine this comes from Styx wanting to feel special. Which everyone wants to feel special in one way or another, but he's concocted a story where he's like, I was contacted by a demon and I started drawing pentagrams everywhere. Aren't I special? I had such an interesting childhood. It's bullshit. I know it probably makes you feel better to believe this, Styx, but it did not happen the way you think it happened.
I didn't know what it meant. I was just drawing them for some reason that I don't even know. She said, oh, well, people think we're witches or something to that effect. And, you know, of course, I am a witch, in a way. I do practice the occult.
Magic isn't real. You do not do magic. You do not practice the occult because the occult is made up. Stop it. You do not do magic, Styx.
I do believe that it works. I know a lot of people don't understand why I would think that because they're used to me being atheistic more and secular, and they say, well, how can you fall back into this trap of religion? I keep trying to tell them it's not religion. I keep trying to tell them I'm not a member of a coven or go to meetings or anything like that, and I don't believe in any of these gods, but they won't.
You don't have to believe in a deity for it to be a religion, Styx, and you don't need to have organized religion for it to be a religion. Organized religion is different than religion. Like, you could be a Christian and not partake in organized religion. Like, if you're like a non-denominational Christian and you don't go to church, you're still a Christian. You're still religious. You're just not into organized religion. Styx, if you believe that there is a magical force in the universe and that demons exist and that all these supernatural things exist and that you are taking part in rituals to enact change in the world, you believe in a religion. You do. I'm not shaming you for that, although, yeah, it's a little silly, especially considering you recognize, apparently based on what you're saying, that you don't believe in Christianity, even though that's believed by far more people than what you're talking about. There's just as much evidence for both. That is to say, there is none. Religion is fine if that's something that you want to do, as long as you're not using it to hurt anyone. But, like, that's what it is. Don't be ashamed of what it is. It's a religious, spiritual belief. It's a belief that is not founded in evidence, but whatever. But here's the thing, Styx. Magic isn't real. Magic isn't real. Magic isn't real. If it makes you feel better to pretend it does, that's okay, but it's not real. It's not a real thing.
Won't accept that. They want me to be completely secular like they are. Well, I'm not, at least in that sense. I do believe that there are forces beyond human imagination because I've actually seen them. If I hadn't sensed them and seen them myself, with my own waking eyes and heard them with my waking ears, I wouldn't believe in it any more than you do. I'm not expecting you to suddenly believe it without having a paranormal experience of your own.
I don't get this line of thought. If I experience something along the lines of what he is describing, I would not automatically assume that that is something that is real because there would be no evidence. It would probably be much more likely that, like I said, having a sleep paralysis dream, or I'm hallucinating. You know why? Because there's evidence people hallucinate, but there isn't evidence that demons exist. Ugh. Razor with 100 bits. Hey, Hannah, I saw strange demon things and heard voices as a kid. I also happened again the last few months. I'm now being treated for bipolar at 35. Well, that'll do it, won't it? Yeah. That kind of thing is much more common, and by much more, I mean it happens. And demons don't. Demons don't exist. If you're hearing or seeing demons, please go see a medical professional so they can diagnose and medicate you so you no longer have to see these hallucinations.
But if I were to deny that, I would live the rest of my life lying to myself. This is what I tell the Christians. I've told the Christians before, yes, I could pretend to worship Jesus. I could go to church. I could do everything that the Bible commands, but ultimately I'd be lying to myself because deep down inside I would still know that that God doesn't exist, that that figure of Jesus was nothing more than a charlatan if he ever existed. I tell the Muslims the same thing.
I don't understand this. Why would you believe demons exist, but not the religion that demons are a part of? I understand that there are other things that could be considered demons in other religions, but I'm saying, Styx, if you believe you saw a demon and you think demons are real, why would you automatically assume that other supernatural things don't exist, right? I'm a naturalist. I'm a materialist. I don't believe that anything supernatural exists. I don't believe in magic. I don't believe in any of that stuff. So it's consistent for me to say, okay, I don't believe demons exist. I don't believe that, like, Jesus was magical. He may have existed as a historical figure, but I don't think his miracles happened the way that is described in the Bible. I don't believe that there's a heaven or a hell or any of that. Same for every other religion on the planet. I just don't think it's real, and it's fine. Again, people are going to have their beliefs, and I can respect that. That's fine, as long as you're not hurting other people. Fine. I don't understand where Styx draws this line where he thinks, okay, I think Christianity is silly or whatever. However, I think I saw a demon as a kid, therefore I believe in demons. It's hypocritical. It's blatantly hypocritical. Very, very strange. The Socialist Roman, thank you for following.
I've told even people that I know quite well, and that I have respect for, and that are well known, and that are into other religions. I've told them that I can't be a member of their religious order or partake in their religious rituals because, to me, they don't make sense or I don't want to do them. I could lie to myself and I could do these things all day long. I could go to church 7 days a week. At the end of the week, I still wouldn't believe in Yahweh. So, for the same reason, I tell these secularists, I've seen the occult work. I've convinced myself that it works because
That's the key sentence here. I've convinced myself that it works. Yes, Styx, I believe you've convinced yourself that it works, and you may even think you've seen it work due to your own confirmation bias. That doesn't mean it stands up to scrutiny when it's actually tested. No evidence has ever shown that magic works. No evidence has ever shown that magic works. If magic worked, everyone would be doing it. Because it would be a way of succeeding, and human beings naturally want to succeed. If I could go and cast a spell tomorrow to give me $1 million, or even something less direct than that, something like I want to cast a spell that's going to help me succeed in my career, or help me succeed in some other avenue of my life, then I would do it. But there's no evidence those things work, so why would I do that, right? Like, if you're taking the time to cast these spells or whatever you're doing, and you start looking out, it's similar to Christians with prayer, or anyone with prayer for that matter. Like, if it doesn't come true the way you thought it is, then you just assume, oh, I must have done it wrong, or oh, it's happening in a way I don't understand. And if it does happen, then you just say, oh, it must have been the spell, or it must have been the prayer, right? No matter what the outcome is, you just assume that your beliefs are still justified by whatever happened, regardless of if it was a success or a failure. You're disregarding failures and taking any success that happens to happen and applying it to the belief when it doesn't really validate that belief. Existential Baguette with 100 bits. But Hannah, all the horror movies said that taking meds for mental illness ruins the Jesus magic that fight the evil demons. Is that a trope? I'm not familiar with that trope.
I've actually made it work. So if I were to abandon that and say, oh yeah, I'm going back to being just an atheist, fuck this, magic's not real, there are no demons, there are no cosmic forces, I'm just gonna live my boring life and die and then I'll stop existing, I could say that. I could act like it was true, but at the end of the day, I still wouldn't believe it. So what the fuck would the point be? And these people can't give me
Styx, you can check your irrational beliefs, right? Like, if you're a skeptical enough person that you believe, for instance, that Christianity is untrue, and I'd imagine you can go down, a list of things, reasons that you don't think Christianity is true. I could do the same. You should be able to apply that same skepticism equally to this particular supernatural belief. At the end of the day, I partially agree. If you believe in something, you just believe it. There's not a lot you can do. But I don't understand how you can apply skepticism to Christianity and not to this set of beliefs equally. It seems like the most blatant kind of cognitive dissonance to me, that you'll say, oh, there's no evidence that prayer works. There's no evidence that Jesus, was a magical figure that actually did the things that the Bible says he did. But on the other hand, you're saying, well, I think I saw a demon as a kid, even though we know for a fact that memories can be misleading, that there are a variety of things that could have caused this, from hallucinations to sleep paralysis, all sorts of different explanations. But you choose not to lend credibility to those explanations and instead go the supernatural route? Why? On what basis are you deciding that the supernatural explanation is somehow the more reasonable one in this specific case, but not in any other case? It's hypocrisy.
Any more evidence than the Christians can as to why I should abandon my own path and follow theirs, because only for my own individual unique path do I have evidence. The Christians can't prove to me that Jesus even existed. The Muslims can't prove to me there's an Allah. The secularists can't prove to me that when I die I'm not going to reincarnate. So what's the point?
That's not how claims work, and you should know that, Styx. It's not about proving something doesn't exist. If you're making a claim that reincarnation exists, then you need to demonstrate that that is true through some sort of evidence, through some sort of observable evidence that can be tested or at least seen by other people. You can't just say, well, I think reincarnation exists. Prove me wrong. That's an unfalsifiable claim. How are you going to test whether or not someone reincarnates? I can make observations that seem to indicate that that isn't the case. Everything seems to indicate that we are material beings, and we are literally our bodies. Like, my brain is me. I am my brain. If someone hits me in the side of a head with a pipe and my brain gets damaged, I'm not going to be able to function as well as a person because I am my brain and I am controlling my body, you know? We're all meat mechs. We're brains controlling meat mechs, okay? Like, what if reincarnation was true would be happening? What would the mechanical process be? You would have to believe in some sort of dualist belief system. You would have to believe that there is a soul separate from the physical reality of our human bodies, and if you believe that, you need to demonstrate it. Or at least you need to demonstrate it if you're going to make that claim to other people and try and convince them. I understand that Styx isn't saying he's doing that here, but I am saying I don't understand why he's claiming, or at least why he's able to apply rationality to other people's belief systems, but when it comes to his own, he is unable or unwilling to do the same.
Tools of capitalism.
Just seems strange. Arcanist Amber Blackwell with 20 bits can't disprove it, huh? I suppose you believe in Russell's invisible undetectable teapot then, Styx. Yeah, the teapot's a good example.
I have my own beliefs.
Oh, for those who don't know, Russell's Teapot is a thought experiment by Bertrand Russell that's supposed to be like, I can claim that there's a teapot, you know, circling in orbit around the sun or whatever. You can't disprove that, therefore I'm right. It shows that line of thinking is ridiculous. Just because I can't disprove a wild claim you make doesn't make that claim automatically true. If you believe that there's a teapot in orbit around in orbit around the solar system, then you need to demonstrate that if you want anyone to take that claim seriously.
But when I was a child, there are some other things that happened that people haven't been aware of. One was apparently I flipped out at some point and was being aggressive or something. It's not exactly clear, and I can't remember this event. And I said something to the school therapist when I was a little kid. I said something along the lines of, "Hell will rise up and kill God." I said a bunch of things about
edgy,
about the devil coming to my aid, and things like that. Now, the normal response from quote-unquote normal people, Christian people essentially, would be, oh, he must have been abused by a satanic cult. But I'm telling you, I do have a good enough memory to know that I was never exposed to the Masons or some Illuminati order.
Because the Illuminati doesn't exist. The Illuminati is not real, and the Freemasons is literally a fraternity for people who aren't in college. It's a club for dudes. It is not satanic. Styx, we both lived... You're older than me. I'm not sure exactly how old Styx is. He's probably around Jake's age, meaning he was probably born in the mid to late 80s. Styx, you were alive, and as was I, right after Satanic Panic, or you maybe during your formative years, you would have heard of Satanic Panic stuff. So in the popular culture, in the zeitgeist, you would have been aware of the idea of satanic cults. You would have been aware of the idea of the occult and Satanism and all that stuff, because it was like a huge cultural narrative at the time. To pretend that there's no other way you could have known this stuff is silly. It's just silly. I could use a more insulting word, but I'm not gonna, because it doesn't even broach that level of, like, seriousness. It's silly for you to claim, I was born in the mid-'80s, but I don't know how I would have known Satanist stuff. People were talking about, like, satanic panic shit all the time. It was a huge part of the cultural zeitgeist, and pretending that you were immune from that because you don't consciously remember hearing people talk about it is stupid. It's stupid. Don't do that. Don't make that claim. Makes you look silly.
Or to a bunch of devil worshippers, and I was living in the middle of nowhere in an area where there were never known to be any cults anyway. I don't even think I met a Wiccan until I was in 8th or 9th grade. And Wicca's mild compared to these other groups. Even the Wiccans didn't suffer as much as the Satanists did. And later on, I adopted Satanism for a while there. For several years, I considered myself a Satanist. And I saw no evidence of abuse. If any abuse has ever occurred, it's not coming from atheistic Satanists. It's not even coming from spiritual Satanists. It's coming from basically depraved youths who believe in the Christian devil. That's another belief that I have. But I did say these things. I did see these things. There is something about my life. This is my belief. And in my last video, I know I said this already. I should probably say it again. If you say that you believe in magic, people will think you're weird. And if you think that you have magical powers or abilities...
It's not that... Let me be clear. I'm not calling Styx a weirdo for this. Styx is a weirdo for a whole other different set of reasons, mostly his political beliefs. Styx, what you're experiencing is natural to the human experience. Styx, you live in a world full of billions of other people. It's hard to stand out, right? All of us, especially in places like the United States, or people who are born in the United States, are pretty attached to the idea of individualism, right? We care very much about our place as an individual as opposed to our place in the whole of society, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with individualism. I think it needs to be balanced against, collectivism, but that's a story for a different video. So as such, you want things that make you special, that make you unique. So for whatever reason, you've attached yourself to this identity of, oh, when I was a kid, I saw a demon and I knew all this stuff about the occult that I couldn't have learned through cultural osmosis. I must have had some sort of contact, It makes you feel special. Everyone wants to feel special now and again, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there are healthier ways to deal with it than to pretend that you, as a child, were somehow informed of a secret, world. It's the same reason, like, the Harry Potter book series as a fantasy for children is fun. It's, oh, I'm in on this secret world of witchcraft and wizardry, and it's all this magic stuff, and it's fun, and I'm in on a secret that most people don't know, right? But that's like a healthy way to deal with it because it's like a fantasy children's novel, right? It's a story that everyone agrees is fictional. You're engaging in that same level of fiction, but you're pretending it's reality and pretending you're Harry Potter. You're pretending you're the special chosen one. Maybe not exactly in those terms, and I don't think Styx is claiming like, I'm gonna save the... No. But you think... Oh, I'm special. I had contact with these occult things when I was very young, and I'm unique in that I know about this stuff, and I know it's true, and everyone else isn't tuned into this secret, underground world of magic and devils or whatever he believes. Like, that's not a healthy way to deal with wanting to feel special. It isn't. Because, like, there are very real things Styx could talk about with himself or think about himself as special. I don't like Styx. I really don't. I think he's abhorrent. I think he's a fascist. But let's pretend for a second he's not, and let's be constructive. Styx has almost 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, right? That's impressive. I think his content, again, is abhorrent, but... Like, if you wanted to feel special, that's something you could feel special about. Oh, I built a career that almost no one can do online. I go and I share my opinion, and people want to hear it. That's a way to feel special if that's what you're looking for. You don't need to indulge in this sort of magical thinking in order to respect yourself and recognize that you've done things that are worth doing and worth celebrating. Again, because of the content, I don't think 500,000 subscribers for Styx is worth celebrating, but he doesn't think that. He thinks his beliefs are reasonable, even though they're very fashy. So, I don't understand why you gotta go to the extent of being like, oh, I just, when I was a kid, I was special, and I knew about magic, and I'm tuned into this secret world that no one knows about. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. Magical thinking is never healthy.
abilities or some sort of importance in the world, they'll call you a lunatic. But if you say that 2,000 years ago some prophet or healer or wise man or messiah had the same powers, people will assume you're normal. I don't look at it that way. I look at that's even more weird than the idea of magic. I believe that there is some sort of goal I'm supposed to fulfill in my life that I haven't quite figured out yet, that's been fated for me by some cosmic force. And I don't spend my time diluting...
Okay, maybe he does actually believe he's Harry Potter and he's gonna, he has some cosmic significance, or he's gonna help save the universe with his magical knowledge. Never mind. I guess I gave him too much credit.
Myself into pretending to know what this is. I don't use it as an excuse to do evil things or to go around hurting people. But I do believe that there's some...
Hint, he does. Styx is fasci and is basically advocating that Donald Trump not accept the results of a Democratic election currently. So, no, Styx does use his little special Harry Potter boy fantasy to justify his evil actions. Weird how that turns out. Magical thinking always leads you to believe that you're special and that you are above the rules in some way. It's not always apparent how that appears, but it can appear when you engage in magical thinking, especially in regard to separating yourself from everyone else. Oh, I'm not one of these NPCs. I know about the occult, and
ultimate purpose and by ultimate purpose, I don't mean something that I'm fated to definitely do, or definitely find out, or definitely partake in.
Migu R says, so do you think we're going to see another Chud resurgence with Trump out of office like how we had the SJW surged in 2014? Possibly. It'll be interesting. I thought similar things, because under Obama, you did have a pretty big rise of people who are like, I'm so sick of these SJWs telling me I can't use the gamer word and all sorts of dumb shit. So I do wonder. The Republican Party and conservative reactionaries, chuds, in general, tend to thrive when they're the opposition party because they have no plan of governance other than cutting taxes for the wealthy and making government not function. So they're not really good when they're in power. However, when they are on the outside of power, when they're not the ones who are heading the executive branch or whatever, they're really good at throwing rocks. They're good at amping up a bunch of dumb people and being like, I don't like this thing the president did. Let's say, here's all the things that are wrong, right? And they're not even necessarily wrong sometimes, but that's their entire strategy. It's not that they have effective governance in mind. It's just that they want to shit on the government in power so they can gain power. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know how much it's going to be because Joe Biden's just a boring old white guy, but we'll see what it's like. I'm sure we'll be criticizing Biden over the next 4 years either way.
I'm saying that there is a fate in place for something to possibly happen if I play my cards right. That's my belief, that there could be some importance to my existence. Most people don't consider themselves important. Even the Christians who believe that they have been fated from the day that they were born to achieve paradise and to worship Jesus. Even they preface that by saying, but I'm not ultimately important. It's Jesus and God that's important. I'm along for the ride. I humble myself before your throne. And the reason why they preface it with that is because they don't want to be taken as lunatics. Because the ones that do consider themselves important sit there and rant and rave with the fire and brimstone, and they are crazy. They are quite literally insane. If I look at somebody like Bob Larson or Billy Graham, I say these people are insane. Either that or they're lying to people for money. And I think probably the latter is the case in more cases than not. But when I have these experiences, when I say these things as a kid, when I see literal demons, when I see wolves materializing in my window, and I'm not hallucinating, I'm not using drugs, I'm not drugged up on anything legal or illegal, I'm a little...
You can have hallucinations outside of drugs, Styx. Like, if you were having regular hallucinations as a kid, and be clear, if you're seeing wolves appear out of nowhere, and you're seeing demons, you are having hallucinations, then that's probably indicative of something you should be medicated for, or you're having, again, some sort of sleep paralysis, which is relatively common, and you're putting undue importance on that. Like, Styx, again, you do not have cosmic importance. You have importance in the sense that you are a human being, and every human being is worthy of their life and respect, unless they're, complete assholes. Which, let's separate that out for right now. Like, you're a human being. You deserve your life, and that's good, and that should be good enough. You don't need to feel like you're the special chosen one in the story that is the universe in order to feel like a special good person. I don't know. Maybe Styx needed to watch more Mr. Rogers growing up or something, instead of concocting, this fantasy world where he's the chosen one and just waiting for the day that someone's going to show up and tell him, your time has come. Instead, he could recognize, oh, I'm special just the way I am, and you're special the way you are, and we should all be happy with ourselves and each other, and, not be fashy. That'd be nice, but we live in reality, where Styx is a bathrobe fascist.
I'm not dreaming at the time, and this is happening repeatedly. I don't have brain damage. I don't have some crazy neurological disorder, as proven by...
If you are seeing wolves appear out of nowhere and demons, then something is going on. You are not actually seeing those things. Something is happening. Whether it's an actual disorder, or if it's just an active imagination, or if it's, like, sleep paralysis stuff. Those are all options, and I'm sure there are more options. But the one that I know it is not is you are not seeing demons and magical, like wolves appearing like they're familiars. Magic isn't real. Magic isn't real.
By the fact that I went through all these tests because they were worried about such a thing. When that happens to be the case, I choose to believe that there's something fishy going on there. That's just what I believe. People they can't understand why I would believe, after having been a Christian and said, fuck that, I'm leaving Christianity because I don't believe in this bullshit. They couldn't believe that after...
Styx, you really don't have a right to call Christianity bullshit. You can say you don't believe in it, but to be like, oh, this is bullshit, with that indignant tone is so hypocritical. You're a hypocrite.
Having been an atheist, and an atheistic Satanist, they said, oh, well, that's kind of okay. You got some weird beliefs, but you're still an atheist like us, so that's okay. But when I returned to spirituality, when I started especially dabbling with psychedelics, which was sort of a good and sort of a bad idea in retrospect, some good experiences and some really shitty experiences, especially with spice, they can't understand why I would go back to believing in the spiritual.
You're literally...
And it boils down, like I said, I can't deny what I have seen with my own eyes and what I have sensed with my own mind. I can't deny it. I'm not telling people to worship a specific god or say that I'm a prophet or say anything else like this, but for my own path, I have to follow where I am best led.
But you don't have to accept it. You can be critical of your own sensations when they don't line up with reality, right? Like, it's Styx. It's not about you not being able to add skepticism or put these experiences up against the same skepticism that you put Christianity up against. It's an unwillingness to do so because you like the feeling of feeling special. You like feeling like you're the special chosen one. You like feeling like you're Luke Skywalker on Tatooine, waiting for a droid to show up. You like feeling like you're Harry Potter living under the stairs, waiting for your letter from Hogwarts. You like to feel like you're Mr. Anderson in his cubicle, waiting for a phone call from Morpheus to show up. You like feeling special. You like feeling like you're this little, special chosen one in waiting. So instead of actually applying skepticism like you do to everything else, you don't to this, because it gives you that fantasy. That's not healthy. That's not healthy at all. And it gives you an undue sense of importance in the world. I'm not saying you aren't important as a human being. Every human being is important. But what I am saying is it makes you feel like you are above other people, which I think is probably part of the reason that you end up so fashy. This is videos from 2014. So Styx 2020, full-on bathrobe fascist that he is. I think this sort of magical thinking, this I'm better than everyone else, even if he'll be like, I'm not better than everyone else, I just think I'm special. You know, he thinks he's better than everyone else. I think that allows him to get to these, like, terrible, destructive places of, I think I'm better than other people, therefore I think I can dictate how other people should live their lives, even if they're telling me that will hurt them, right? It's not good. It's not good. Magical thinking inherently leads people down some pretty dark paths a lot of the time, and I think this is a good case study in what happens when you start indulging it instead of checking it with your own skepticism.
I have to follow the path that to me looks right. That path happens to be different from people who take secularity very, very seriously. It happens to be different from people who are members of organized religions. I'm not going to go to church. If I did go to church, it would be to enjoy the music. I will admit, I like a good church service. I always think about, hijacking the organ and playing something satanic when I'm in a church, but, I've gone to church a few times in the last few years. Not in the last couple of years, obviously, but I went to church when I was down in Texas several times, and I enjoyed the Catholic Mass. I thought it was pretty fun. A little bit,
I think that's the first time anyone's ever described a Catholic Mass as fun.
weird and superstitious, and all that fucking bending down really takes a toll on your knees, especially when they've got those little things underneath the seats. I'm still not exactly sure how you're supposed to use them. I think they're for your knees and they're sort of a cushion, but you also use it as a footrest. I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure it has some deep significant purpose, but it escaped me. But yeah, I mean, I believe in some spiritual concepts. I believe in the occult to an extent. I think there are a lot of charlatans in the occult. I think Crowley was chief among them, and that most modern occult works are completely useless because they've been tainted by his opioid rantings. Crowley, in order to practice magic, according to all legitimate older belief systems...
Legitimate. I can't possibly do enough air quotes. Would be here all day.
You had to have a great deal of...
Thank you, M. Templar. Hope your day's going well, too.
...self-control, and the potential to be abstinent from materialism for a long period of time to purify yourself before these sorts of rituals. Crowley spent all of his time stoned for the last few years of his life and quickly became a very fat little dwarven man who essentially wrote some books and smoked himself to death with opium. I choose to
Goals.
believe that somebody like that probably
Don't do opium. I'm joking.
isn't that in tune to the occult, if indeed it exists in a realistic sense, because he doesn't appear to exhibit the characteristics of somebody who you would think was wise or enlightened or powerful in some way. And then...
Interesting. I think that's pretty telling of Styx's beliefs, too. It's not about what Crowley did or didn't say about the occult. It's that Crowley aesthetically did not stand up to Styx's standard for what he believes someone who is a occult master or leader should look and act like. Again, I think that's pretty indicative of where Styx will go later when he gets really, really fashy. Because he likes, like, strongman figures. It doesn't matter that Donald Trump clearly shows himself to be an idiot by the content of his speech. Whatever. He's an asshole, and he strong arms people, and therefore he must be good. Like, it's not about content for Styx. It's about aesthetic, which is very fashy. Fascism is, a lot of it's about the aesthetic, you know? So, that's pretty telling.
died alone and cold with a few... I can't remember who it was who described it. It died alone and cold on opium.
Can we coin the term bathrobe fascist to describe culty alt-right folks? I think it would be good. Bathrobe fascist would probably be good to describe fascists who do YouTube stuff or other, social media stuff to try and get people on the side of fascism. I think that would be fine. Bathrobe fascist.
With a couple cans of soup. I think that's exactly what he said. I find that very funny, so don't mind my goofy laugh. I can't control it. But yeah, those are some of my beliefs. I thought people should know, though, that I literally said things about the devil without really thinking about them when I was a little kid.
Okay, kids say weird stuff. Kids say weird stuff. It's not indicative of any sort of occult or satanic presence.
And started drawing pentagrams everywhere. And the only thing I can think of that set it off was seeing this weird being floating around on my wall. Again, you can choose to believe I didn't see anything and that I was hallucinating, or that I
So John Doyle is a bathrobe fascist? Yeah, I think he would count.
had fallen asleep
Nick Fuentes, also bathrobe fascist.
and was dreaming. I have my reasons to believe that's not the case. But I believe in satanic power. Not in the sense of the Christian devil, but as an archetype. I believe that there's some cosmic force there, and I'm exploring it fully. I'm delving deeper into darkness than you could possibly comprehend. What do you think I'm writing morbid stories for? But
Edgy.
Yeah, that's just a little bit of material there. Yet another rant. I'm bored right now. I was playing Victoria 2, and I got bored of crushing the Russians over and over because they can't fight back against united Germany. I got tired of fighting the French.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Jalen Jean with 20 bits. I did mentally ill stuff as a mentally ill kid, so I'm the chosen one. Hey, that's how all good stories start, okay?
Because they gave up Tunisia, and now they don't have enough troops to oppose me. I already took over northern Italy. I mean, what's left? I'd have to attack the British, and then I'd have to build a huge navy just to land troops on their little island, so I got bored very fast. And it's only the 1880s. Half the game's not done yet. So that's about all. Peace out.
Oh god. This playlist has like over 100 videos. What the fuck? Oh no. Occult video number 141. Blood and Soil. Ethnic Heathenism. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
Alright, everyone, it's time for...
For those who don't know, Blood and Soil is a literal Nazi chant. They chanted this in Charlottesville. They were chanting like, "You will not replace us." The phrase is usually, I'm just quoting, the fascists here. This is not my opinion. The Jews will not replace us, but they changed it to, "You will not replace us," and blood and soil, blood and soil. These are literal white supremacist Nazi talking points, catchphrases. And this video is entitled Occult Video 141, Blood and Soil, Ethnic Heathenism. What the fuck?
The Occult Video 141, Blood and Soil, Ethnic Heathenism, which is something that it takes off of Spengler's work, among other things, sort of the Heathen Manifesto stuff. It's an interesting concept. It's the idea heathenism is more on the strictly paganistic side than it has anything specifically to do with the occult, as in, witchy stuff, witch lore, something like that. But magic was always part of paganism, and in that sense, folk magic and sort of folk tales, the mythological side of it, of the occult.
Hold on. SPQR flag. Modern usage. Even in contemporary usage, SPQR is still used in municipal coat of arms of Rome and as abbreviation for the Commune of Rome in official documents. The Italians have long used a different and humorous expansion of this abbreviation. In Spain, it's used for a coat of arms. In business and English-speaking countries, SPQR is sometimes humorously used to mean small profit, quick return, often by people who have studied Latin America. Someone mentioned this. Is this like something that's used, Oh, wait. White nationalist? There we go. Some members of the white nationalist groups use the acronym SPQR on flags on their person, such as tattoos and other forms of identification. However, the Anti-Defamation League does not include SPQR in its hate symbol database. And organizations, Mark Pitcairn said that the abbreviation is used just as much or more often by non-extremists and extremists. Okay. I'm gonna guess Styx is not using this for non-white supremacist purposes. Oh, Jesus Christ, Styx, no. Christ.
Which is Twain, in my opinion, often with real history.
Altered Rin says white supremacists and neo-Nazis like to glorify the Roman Empire and ancient Rome a lot. That is so weird to me, because Rome didn't have the same conception of race that we have today. Like, they had a slave class, but it wasn't about the color of their skin, right? It was a whole different kind of bullshit, but it wasn't the same kind of bullshit we had in terms of chattel slavery in the United States. You were either, like, a Roman citizen, or you were a barbarian. Okay? They weren't like, oh, your skin's darker than mine. Fuck you. I don't know.
There's at least a kernel of truth to most mythology, even this really out there stuff. You can talk about ancient aliens if you want. I'm not going to do that. But I believe that there is some truth to these tales. That material is all woven together. And within the ethnic heathenism, the sort of blood and soil style thing, it goes into the racial and to the tribal. Now, I would point out, if you read some Victorian literature, which itself has nothing to do with heathenism in an ethnic sense, has nothing to do with nationalism per se. If you read, for instance, The Occult Significance of Blood by Rudolf Steiner, you'll find that the idea of racial memory and tribalism.
Rudolf Steiner, Austrian philosopher. Steiner's work includes both universalist, humanist elements and historically influenced racial assumptions due to the contrast and even contradictions between these elements, whether a given reader interprets anthroposophy as racist or not depends upon the reader's concerns. Steiner considered that by dint of its sharing language and culture, each people have a unique essence, which he called its spirit or soul. He saw race as a physical manifestation of human spiritual evolution. Oh, gross. Okay.
And the eugenics, to an extent, were quite common even in that era of writing, both in Europe and the United States. And it also overlapped with science. Early anthropology. The first course in anthropology ever taught within the United States was taught at the University of Vermont. I've been in the actual building where it was taught, which hasn't really been renovated since that same era. It's kind of a weird little building in the middle of campus. It's like right near the science building. So you've got this like brutalist lecture hall attached to the sort of the chemistry building where they do a lot of the science labs and stuff. It's like total brutalism. It looks like it could be in the Soviet Union. Then on the other side you have the very Victorian looking library. It's very sprawling and everything. And then you have this little sort of cottage-looking house with a little tower on top of it and everything. And that's where some of the, I think a couple of the basic English and anthro courses are taught. But that's actually the birthplace of American anthropology, more or less. And it's also the last holdout of eugenics within the United States. This is not a coincidence. Well into the 1970s, UVM was still involved with this sort of thing. The state
Gross.
of Vermont was one of the last holdouts of eugenics within the United States, specifically related to some of the Native American populations here and within the region. Blood and soil ethnic heathenism, though, is more ancient. You're talking about an overarching sort of tribal system, which encompasses every aspect of it. It encompasses politics. It would, of necessity, encompass science to a degree where it's going to be present in such a culture. It certainly encompasses the historical lore, and it also encompasses the strictly religious, spiritual / mythological side of a culture. Now, do I support the idea of ethnic heathenism? Yes.
There it is! Yep.
If somebody is in a place in the world, this would be the case for most of Europe, where ethno-state principles were used for thousands of years, where people were part of a tribe.
Breeze Coes, thank you for following.
It was part of a sort of tribal nation, we're talking pre-Rome usually, and then eventually amalgamated into a cultural enclave with greater political organization and became more of a modern nation state. Wherever you're talking about that sort of thing, people, for thousands of years in many cases, sometimes longer, have had it ingrained into them that that's the way to do business. That the people have a tribal lineage, they have a tribal system, they have their own folklore, they have their own folk cuisine and everything else under the sun. They certainly have their own religion. If you look at Europe, you're looking at a patchwork of these different things.
Okay, but because something has been done historically doesn't mean that that's the way to move forward, right? You don't need, just because you say like, oh, we came from nation states that were very, very separate from one another and there was no mixing whatsoever and we had very closed borders and there was no, okay, that doesn't mean we should do that moving forward. That doesn't mean, it's literally just an appeal to tradition. If you're saying, well, it's how things have been done, so we should continue it. Styx, I don't know if you know this, but history is full of conflict caused by people separating themselves into these tribal groups, whether we're talking about city-states or nations or literal tribes, whatever. It's not a good way of doing business, as you put it. It's destructive. It's bad. When you other human beings the way that human beings have a tendency to do, you tend to stop looking at them as fellow humans, and you do some pretty bad stuff. It's also really backward. A lot of this was due to, like, literal restrictions. Like, sometimes nations will have their borders basically done by, you know, geographic elements, you know, oceans or mountain ranges or stuff. Not all the time, a lot of it is political or whatever, but, you know, some of this was due to limitations. Other stuff was, again, political confrontations between different groups that ended up creating borders between these nations. In the 21st century, these same limitations that caused people to be segregated groups just don't make sense anymore. I can go and fly around the world in a day, right? In a day. Like, that's amazing, and that's cool. But, like, the same restrictions that were on people in the past are not there today. I don't understand the idea that moving forward human beings should segregate themselves, specifically, especially segregating themselves ethnically. That is incredibly immoral. That's immoral, and not only is it immoral, it's stupid. It's stupid. It's a stupid way to do things. It would be like if we were to say, okay, we need to start dividing nation states based on the color of your hair. If you're a brunette, you go over here. If you're a blonde, you go over here. If you have red hair, you go over here. It's stupid. It is incredibly, incredibly stupid.
In those situations, ethnic heathenism makes sense. If there's going to be a pagan revival, it will be an ethnic pagan revival. Just the same as if you have a pagan revival in some part of Africa, chances are it's going to be a tribal African population practicing some traditional African religion, some animist system or ancestor worship or something. It'd be the same in parts of Asia. You'd have a revival of an essence of paganism. It would tie into the folklore. It probably would be nationalistic. When we look at Nazi Germany, the big boogeyman that everyone talks about when they think about nationalism at all, they immediately...
The reason that Nazi Germany is brought up as a boogeyman is because World War II and Nazi Germany caused the deaths of countless millions of people, whether we're talking about the tens of millions of people, the over 10 million people at least, who died in the Holocaust, both Jewish and otherwise, and then the result of World War II, which caused millions and millions of more deaths. And you're like, oh, the Nazi boogeyman. Fuck yes, the Nazi boogeyman. There's a reason Adolf Hitler is like the bad guy. There's a reason Adolf Hitler is considered like one of the most evil human beings ever to exist, because through his action, millions and millions of people died. Many of them for like racial reasons, or for like reasons of, oh, they were gay, or they were, you know, whatever. How can you try and downplay the evil of Nazi Germany and think you're anything other than a fucking scumbag?
immediately regress to talking about specifically the German Nazi Party. Has nothing to do with anything here, by the way. That's what they talk about. What were they surmising before, in the run-up to the Nazi Party taking hold there? Originally, it was an ethnic heathen movement. It had pagan trappings. It had mystic trappings. It tied into then what was considered, semi-modern lore about Atlantis. It tied into science, especially within the archaeological sense, taking off of anthropology.
Holy shit. Is he seriously buying Nazi propaganda about their archaeological discoveries? Because archaeological discoveries under Nazi Germany were fucking fraudulent. They would go, because for those who don't know, the idea of like Aryan personhood, right? The idea of the Aryan race is based off completely debunked beliefs that Germans descended from this like Viking-esque Norse group of super people, right? These blonde-haired, blue-eyed super Aryans. So under the Nazi regime, they forced, anthropological groups to basically make shit up and try and come up with evidence for this bullshit, like, conspiracy theory, basically. And Styx is just, like, parroting it like it's true. Like, oh, actually, Nazi Germany, it had its roots in anthropological discoveries. No, they made up a fake story about their, like, Nordic supermen roots. Oh, we're the fucking Ubermensch. Look at us with our blonde hair and blue eyes. And you're just like, yeah, that's real, even though we know that's not real. We know that's not real, Styx. Marcus Drake with 100 bits. There's literally a term for that kind of event. Hemoclism. It sounds like a horror movie for a reason. Yeah.
The idea of trying to discover sort of the origins of your racial system, the origins of your ethnicity, your culture, your state at large. Trying to look at the past and and theorize about it, essentially. And I consider that to be a positive thing. Later on, you get the more pragmatic, militaristic side, the expansionism. That's sort of separate, though, from the ethnic...
I wouldn't... Pragmatic. It is time for the pragmatic part of the war. It is time to invade Poland. Not what I would call pragmatism, but okay.
Heathenism. In fact, some of the proponents of that original sort of eugenic era model were oppressed by the Nazi Party. We're talking some of the secret societies there, or not so secret societies, so the gentlemen's club side. They were suppressed. Hitler actually attempted to exterminate the same occultists that led to the sort of Volkish mentality that preceded the rise of the Third Reich. Actually went after those who had been involved in memetics, you might say, at the time, because they were...
Chuds be chudding says, let's invade Russia during winter equals Nazi pragmatism. Let me give you a good example of Nazi pragmatism. Oh no, the cyanide capsule. She does not work quickly. That's the most pragmatic Hitler ever got.
Threat. And that's naturally what will happen. By the way, if you ever get an autocratic system that rises up as a result of occultism, the first thing it'll do is try to suppress or control all of those occultists. Any occultist that was not an early member of whatever group has seized power will not be trusted, because it'll be recognized that ties right in. If the government there is wise, not necessarily moral, but wise, if it's good at strategy, it's going to attempt to crush those people. Because that's where you get your real masters of propaganda. It's where you get people who can garner large audiences, potentially, because they're talking about things that are ingrained, they're innate within the human spirit. Namely, mythology. Why are we here? How did we get here? Why? What are we supposed to do now? How do we reform culture and make it bigger and better in every way? How do we discover sort of how do we trace our lineage, our genealogy? If you read some of these manifestos, from The Voice of Our Ancestors by Wolf Sorensen would be a good example.
The voice of our ancestors. Do. Is there a Wikipedia article on this shit? Originally released in 1935, Friedrich Fischer's work, The Voice of Our Ancestors, has been conflated with an early Heinrich Himmler writing, and not without good reason. The quasi-mystical and obvious folkish overtones, here explicit in nature, fit well within the latter's own philosophy. As the world approaches the same level of alienation and misery which preceded the Second World War, once again such literature is as before finding its audience, and the silent voices of the past, for good or ill, are once again heard, voices of the past, for good or for ill, are once again heard. Ooh, this symbol. The symbol on the back of this book is the same, is a symbol that's in Styx's logo. Oh, it used to be. That's so familiar. Styx has used that that image before. I swear. See this? That looks so familiar. Has Styx not used that? No, it's right. Wait, yeah, okay. See? What is that symbol? Does anyone recognize that? Do you know what that is? How long do I want my hair to be? I'm not sure.
You can see that there was a lot of social alienation at the time. The first wave of globalism preceded the Second World War. Or I should say globalism light. The sort of...
Hold on. I'll reverse image search this and see if I can find something. Image, save as. Oh, no, that's the web page. Hold on. I'll reverse image search it to see if I can find anything. Images. Photo. Upload an image. Choose file. Let's see if we can find this image anywhere. It's definitely picking up Styx and Hammer. Someone on Parler has that as their logo, which makes sense. Styx and Hammer 666 logo. Right, but like, what is it? Let's see if Rational Wiki has anything to do with it. Tarl Warwick, better known as Styx and Hammer, Botany One, or Tyrell Warner, is a YouTube talker who promotes alt-right talking points. Warwick previously considered himself a libertarian, and before that a progressive. When Trump lost the election, he, like many other Trump supporters, started shouting voter fraud accusations. Ooh, someone's updated this article recently. As of April 2020, Warwick has over 400,000 subscribers and 238 million views. On April 12, 2018, Warwick announced he was running for governor of Vermont. The run was ultimately unsuccessful. I didn't realize he ran for Vermont. Flirting with the alt-right. Warwick has been sympathetic to the alt-right since 2016, but was apprehensive to consider himself as part of it. In his first appearance on Red Ice TV in September 2016, he claimed he was sort of on the fringes of the alt-right, I guess. In his final video of 2016, he said he is more than happy with being called alt-light. He has since disowned both titles and prefers to call himself a classical liberal. If anyone ever tells you they're a classical liberal, they're fucking full of shit. They are full of shit. They are trying to hide the fact that they are alt-right or a Nazi or just right-wing, and they're fucking embarrassed, okay? He has been endorsed by noted non-Nazi Richard Spencer, and later appeared in one of Spencer's podcasts. Oh, it's always good to show up in a podcast and be a guest on a podcast with a literal Nazi. So the Ouroboros is often interpreted as a symbol for eternal cyclical renewal or cycle of life, death and rebirth. The skin sloughing process snakes symbolize the transition of souls. Okay. Thank you. Oh, well, that's different than the one that Styx has, though. Wait, is it? Hold on. Oh, no, it is a snake eating its own tail. It just has wings, too. Snake eating its own tail with wings. Does that have a specific meaning? Hold on. Let me look at this. Control F. Wings? No, doesn't show up. I wonder if there's a specific meaning of the Ouroboros with wings. Warwick dedicated a video to express his support for Varg Vikernes and encourages viewers to subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Warwick has long been interested in the Third Reich, just like many people who totally aren't neo-Nazis. For example, he gave a 5-star review of Hitler's Mein Kampf, calling Hitler idiotic, but describing the book as reading like a drastic corrective manifest for the primary purpose of improving mankind, albeit through somewhat stupid methods. Wow. After being called a crypto-fascist for saying Nazism briefly worked on a video about his opposition to communism, Warwick defended himself in the comments section, arguing that he had spent years attacking corporations and authoritarianism on the left and the right. I guess authoritarianism is bad, except when it sort of works, in which case it's actually not bad. Styx is currently on a, month-long tirade about how, Donald Trump should be the president 5 so just for reference where he's at today. Holocaust revision. Warwick grossly underestimates or outright denies several aspects of the Holocaust. In particular, Warwick doesn't question that the Holocaust took place, but questions what proportion of deaths came through execution instead of famine or disease. This is the standard line from revisionists, who pretend they aren't deniers and like to pretend they're being persecuted for just asking questions about whether the Holocaust really happened according to the official story. He insists that Zyklon B was mostly harmless delousing agent. Oh no! That's a very common Holocaust denier talking point. And Auschwitz was burning through so much of the stuff, mostly trying to keep lice from spreading the typhus epidemic brought about by Allied firebombing. Untrue. Zyklon B was used to exterminate people in concentration camps. It goes on to say that too, yeah. This is false. Zyklon B was used in Auschwitz's gas chambers to kill Jewish people. And other people, I'd imagine, but yeah. Mostly Jewish people, though, yes. This is a stock claim by revisionists who have had to explain away the evidence of its heavy use at some camps. Those thoughtful Nazis were just trying to get a handle on the pest problem. No, wait, not those pests. He does admit that maybe the gas was used for the occasional execution, which is an understatement. In the same vein, he supposes the shower of Auschwitz to have been an actual shower. The showers were, in fact, disguised gas chambers. Warwick gave 5 stars to an obscure book, Black Nazis, a study of racial ambivalence in Nazi Germany's military establishment. The book is certainly not for those who envision nothing but pure evil upon hearing... This is a quote, I think. The book is certainly not for those who envision nothing but pure evil upon hearing the words Nazi Germany. A nice scholarly look at aspects of the period that most historians overlook, lest we forget the good, pious communist Russians killed twice as many people in the Holocaust. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's always good to equivocate with genocides. Good job, Styx. As we all know, the Nazis had famously progressive racial policies, and then, of course, there's 3 citations to Wikipedia. Do I need to click them and explain to you that the Nazis, in fact, were racist? Styx is a bad dude. They say he's a bad dude. 2man 642 with 20 bits. It looks like the homunculus symbol from FMA. And then Jalen Jean with 20 bits. Sad, but it figures that the same arguments are used to deny American genocide. And then, let me look at this. Yeah, I don't know. The homunculus with, or the Ouroboros, rather. Let me search this, but with wings. Might just be the wings might literally just be a design choice, but
there's nothing funny about the tools of
either way,
capitalism. It's
some occult shit. Marcus Drake, oh, the Ouroboros has been used to represent Jormungandr, so probably more Norse fetishization, sure. Which is interesting, too, because the Nazis also fetishized Norse mythology, Norse occultism. Like I said, they believed the German people were preceded by, a group of, like, Norse Ubermensches, basically.
Same spirit of global identity.
Oh, it's on the book because he's the editor? That'll do it!
Identity politics preceded it. This divorced people from their genealogical histories, from their cultural histories, from their ethnic tribe. And so there was a lot of social alienation going on because people didn't really like that.
Here's his Amazon page. Hold on. Okay, yeah, it is the Amazon page. Folk medicine, a collection. Folk fortune-telling and divination, a collection. Demonology, a collection. Alchemy, a collection. 1900 or past, present. Oh, God.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Logarth with 50 bits. Inverted crescent is an eternal Satan symbol. The Ouroboros has been used as an eternal symbol and has been associated with Satanism, and the wings are just a style choice. Lots of artists depict Ouroboros as a winged dragon. Okay. For the record, if you can see that Ready Player 2 is in my cart, it's not because I'm an unironic fan. Ready Player 1 is fucking terrible, and I kind of want to read the second one out of hate. Just for the record. Yeah, I already had his page open.
It made some people feel uncomfortable. Sorensen is ruminating on pictures of his ancestry and saying, oh, they have such proud faces, but I don't really know anything about them. And I feel sort of lost. I feel divorced from this sort of mystic spirit of my tribal, my ethnic lineage. And you can understand how we see this today. Great example. Here's the funny part. What group of people in the world right now is most obsessed above all others with this same sort of thing? Israel. Oh, it's our homeland. We want to discover, we want accurate genealogies going back all the way to King David. We want our genealogies. We want to defend this culture. We certainly want to defend our mysticism, our gematria, our Kabbalah, and so forth. We will rebuild the temple. We have a religious and an ethnic reason to be here, and it's divine. That's what they feel. My question would be, why would it be negative if some other group of people
Oh, God.
is doing the same? What if the Germans had a pagan Volkish revival? I'm not talking about, gas everyone who's foreign. I'm talking about an ethnic revival within the country in which they reclaim sort of that tribal lineage. They go back to their old rituals. They go back to their old philosophies. And as a result of that, they restore that sort of tribal memory. You could have the same thing, by the way, in a non-ethno state. If you're looking at the Americas, you're looking at states that have been, for some centuries, almost as soon as civilized people landed in the continents to begin with.
Ugh, not a fan of the term he just used. Okay.
And started building, sort of the territories and
Civilized people.
colonies that became nations here. They were mixed together, at least among European groups, as well as with the native cultures that were there. Slaves come over, that gets intermixed, and it's sort of a hodgepodge of humanity.
Logarth with 20 bits. Yeah, the crescent like that is usually wrapped around the pentagram and is known as the endless pentagram or endless inverted pentagram. So his icon is probably rooted far more in occult than Nazi or hate group symbolism. Sure, makes sense.
But they can still have...
For him, I feel like the things are entwined, at least to an extent, but I understand what you're saying.
The only stand-in, and this informs my political beliefs, because I'm not European or Asian or African, I can't really adopt the ethno-state principle. There wasn't an ethno-state here to adopt. Even the very early all-white settlers here were considered of different races when they were coming here in the first place. So you had a Scandinavian, you had an Anglo-Saxon from England or Wales or whatever, then you had an Irish person, you had some Italian, and someone from Poland and a Russian and all these groups. They were considered different races at the time. Now, of course, we refer to that more as ethnicity or nationality or something. But they were all mixed together. It's not like if you were to look at Europe, you can have this sort of pan-white ethno-state concept, But each individual ethnicity, the linguistic and ethnic groups would have to be separate under such tribalism. So you'd have a German people, you'd have a French people, you'd have an English people, you'd have an Italian people, maybe split in half, according to what the northern Italians seem to want. You'd have a Greek people, and so forth. That's what you would have. You can have the togetherness, you can have the understanding and the peace and so forth, but those ethnic clads would be separate largely from one another. They wouldn't be generally intermixing under that particular model. But they've already mixed here. What we call a white American is a hodgepodge of different white groups.
Right. Race is a social construct. So, like, it kind of starts to fall apart. Do you see the point, Styx? It's all made up.
Generally speaking, they may have mainly Italian or mainly German or mainly Irish background, but they've already been mixed together. For the most part, they're mixed individuals from multiple European backgrounds. Take a DNA test, you're living in the United States, chances are you're not 100% German, 100% English, 100% Irish or something. There's probably some other blood there. There's often Native American blood there too. 5 or 6 generations ago, a lot of people have a great-great-great-grandparent who was, half Cherokee or something like that. You can't really have the ethno-state model present there.
Okay, but, like, this same thing applies basically everywhere on the planet to one extent or another. United States is a very recent example of, like, what we would call, like, nationalities coming to one place and, like, intermarrying and, to the point where we have, my great-grandparent was German and their spouse was French and, all that stuff. That's a recent example, but that's present all throughout history to one extent or another. The ways in which we divide ourselves are more or less arbitrary. Ethno-nationalism works nowhere, and I mean nowhere, because it's a stupid concept. It's an arbitrary way of deciding who gets to live in your country. It's very, very stupid. It would be like deciding, my country's only for red-haired people. Non-red-haired people can't be citizens of my country. It's not just the United States where it's a stupid concept. Everywhere in the planet it is a stupid concept.
That's why a lot of people, they talk about secession, they're like, oh, let's split up, let's have a white America, a black America, a Hispanic America, and stuff like that. I think that's a screwy idea. Over here, the stand-in is civic nationalism, but here's the secret, here's the key, and this is what held the United States together. You want to know a secret? Columbia, the goddess that we began to adopt here, it's a real religious system. The civic system overlapped and became a state religion of sorts. Very, very Roman style, and it worked. And it wasn't until we began abandoning this that we started having problems. I think if we just take...
No problems existed in the United States prior to that. Galaxy brain take.
Those ideals, liberty and brotherhood and justice and so forth, subjugate them to a sort of pagan-style pantheon, and begin circulating civic nationalist literature enough and making enough songs and marching down the street. Yeah, we should have military marches too. Yeah, we'd be like in the next Rome, in every essence. Things would be nicer than they are today.
No, you shouldn't want to be Rome. Rome is interesting from a historical perspective, but you don't want to be Rome. You don't want to be Rome! You don't want to be Rome. Mm-mm.
They would be.
No, they wouldn't.
There'd be more respect. Probably be less crime, and people could get along.
There might be less crime because we'd be crucifying people to death. Styx, the Roman Empire was a pretty totalitarian state. It's not a place you want to live. I agree. Totalitarian states do on the whole probably have somewhat less crime. But that's because they're totalitarian states, and in a risk-reward analysis of like, oh, there'll be a little less crime, but no one will have any freedoms, that's not okay. That's not one that wins out. No, the Roman Empire fell for a reason. It's good that the Roman Empire fell.
But we can't really adopt the ethno-state principle in the ancient sense. Those cultures are ancient. Ours is only a few centuries old, but we can still have that civic culture. We can build it. We can make it. We just have to use a concerted effort for a few more centuries, and we'll have created basically our own American ethnicity of sorts. It would be a civic model. It is possible to do. But as far as people from the old world engaging in ethno-nationalism and overlapping that with some sort of tribal or folklore-laden system, yeah, you should.
No, you should not. No, you shouldn't. Ethno-nationalism is bad. We had a whole world war over this.
You should have that. I mean, it works for the Israelis, doesn't it?
No? Do you know anything about the Israel-Palestine conflict that's been ongoing for decades? Styx? You fucking moron? What are you talking about?
That's what they're doing. We're a Jewish nation. We have this history. Here are our genealogies. We've been here for, 5,000-6,000 years, supposedly. Well, there you go. That's exactly what they're doing. It's blood and soil heathenism. It's not Christianity. It's outside of that. I don't know why all the European and American Christians worry so about, like, nationalism of other stripes. Oh, paganism or something. The Jewish religion was partially informed by Babylonian tradition. So where's the problem? I don't quite understand it. I think that we should adopt that. And yeah, we should defend our cultures. Whether it's a civic culture or it's an ethnic culture, it doesn't really make a huge difference. That's about all.
That's right, capitalistic propaganda.
Styx is a fucking idiot. He thinks he's this, like, pragmatic guy, and he's not. He's just a fucking authoritarian. He's just a fucking fascist. Guys, I don't know how to tell you this, but fascism is never pragmatic. It just isn't. Oh no. Is Styx sporting just a mustache now? Hoo boy. That's a look. I'll give him that. Okay. That's enough Styx for all of eternity, although I'm sure we'll deal with them another time too.